What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our training. Today's video is going to be about getting you 21 pounds down of pure fat by January 1st, 2026. This training assumes that you are starting today, Friday, September 26th, but I also understand that a lot of you won't start until Monday, the 29th of September. So this is going to be all done in one take. I'm going to teach you the numbers behind this so that you understand it. I'm going to teach you some helpful tips to make sure that you get there more easily. And there's going to be very little fluff to this. So let's get started. Okay, so this is how I would think about this from the perspective of a coach coaching my clients. So just pretend you guys are all my clients is exactly how we would break this down. So we have 14 weeks until January 1st, if assuming you're starting on Monday. That's exactly 13 weeks and 6 days. So we're going to call it 14 weeks. Okay. Now, in order to lose 21 pounds of fat, you need to lose 21 pounds in general. Let's start with just 21 pounds, and then I'll break this down into like fat and why there's a difference. So 21 pounds, that means that you need to lose 1.5 pounds per week. Okay? So 14 times 1.5 pounds equals 21 pounds. So that's 14 weeks times 1.5 pounds per week of fat loss to get to 21 pounds by January 1st. Okay? Easy way to do that. You want to lose 21 pounds divided by 14 and you get 1 pound, 1.5 pounds per week. All right. Now we need to figure out how many calories are in a pound and a half. So if I need to lose 1.5 pounds of fat, then I need to eat in a caloric deficit to lose 1.5 pounds every single week. So just a quick recap, the only way that you lose weight is by being in a calorie deficit. There's no magic to this. It's literally this simple. Calorie deficit just means that you burn more calories, or let's flip it, you consume fewer calories than your body burns. Okay, the very simple formula to this is you just need to eat less than your total daily energy expenditure. You need to eat less than the number of calories that it takes for you to maintain your current weight. So let's just use the example of your maintenance calories is 2,000 calories per day to maintain your current weight. So let's say this is the number of calories. If you eat 2,000 calories per day, hypothetically, let's say you maintain your weight, okay? Now, in order to lose, this is gonna be valuable for you guys, 1 pound of fat per week, you need to eat in a 500 calorie daily deficit, okay? Well, how does that work? For those of you interested in the math, 500, right, times the number of days in a week, which is 7, equals 3,500, all right? 3,500 calories, right? Let me break that down. You're in a 500 calorie deficit. That means you're eating you're eating 500 fewer calories every day. So by the end of the week, times 7, that's 3,500 calories that you've eaten less than. You've eaten 3,500 calories less than the number of calories that it takes for you to maintain your weight, right? That makes sense. If you maintain your weight at 2,000 and I subtract 500 calories from that and I eat that every day for a week, I should have eaten 3,500 calories less. Now, guess what? How many calories are in a pound of fat? Guess. 3,500. Okay? So that's the basic unit of measurement here. That's how we're going to make this work. So if I want to lose a pound, I need to eat a pound in a week. I need to eat 500 calories less than my maintenance every day. All right? And I will have lost 1 pound, not of fat necessarily, or not of muscle necessarily, of weight over the course of that week. This is where a lot of people get tricked up. They think they're losing fat, and really they're actually losing weight. Weight could be water, really in this case not water because there's no calories in water, but weight does include water, to be fair. They could be losing, when you're losing weight, you could be losing muscle as well. We'll talk about how to avoid this. So if you want to lose 1 pound of fat in a week, you need to eat in a 500 calorie deficit. That means 500 calories less than the calories it takes for you to maintain your weight. If you want to lose 1.5 pounds, so 1.5 pounds per week, then you need to eat 750 calories less than this amount. Okay, and how does that work? 500 calories gets you to a pound. Half of 500 is 250. I'm going to add that back on top. So 500 plus 250, that's a 750 calorie deficit to lose a pound and a half of fat per week. Okay. If you don't get the math, don't worry about it. You just need to eat in a 750 calorie deficit per day for the next 14 weeks in order to lose 21 pounds per week. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you into some problems here. So if you maintain, let's say your maintenance calories are, like we said, maintain at 2,000 calories per day. In order to lose 1.5 pounds per week, you need to eat in a 750 calorie deficit, right? That leaves you with 2,000 minus 750 equals 1,250 calories per day. So that's your target calories per day for the next 14 weeks. That's not a ton of food. I mean, I'm a 6'1" guy, I weigh 200 pounds. That's not a lot of food. That's like 1.5 of my meals. And it's like one cheat meal. Honestly, one cheat meal is like can easily be 2,000 calories. So yeah, that presents the first problem. How do we eat this little food and like still make it to the end? And how do we also make it to where it's just fat that we're losing and we're not losing muscle? So there's two questions to answer here. The first one is, how do we not feel so hungry eating 1,250 calories per day? That's the first question. The second one is, how do we just lose fat and not muscle? Okay, let's start off with question number one. How do we not feel so hungry eating 1,250 calories per day? Here's the reality. You don't. Okay, but this is what you do. So remember, earlier I mentioned that these 2,000 calories per day to maintain your current weight, this is based off of a couple things. This is based off of your height, your weight, but more importantly, it's based off of your physical activity. Let me show you guys something real quick. So if I go to TDEE calculator, Legion, and I tap on the first link, and I put in all my information here. So I'm 200 pounds, I am 30, I'm 6'1". Notice here, okay? Notice at the bottom. Oops. Here it says my total daily energy expenditure. This is your maintenance calories, okay? If I eat this amount every day, in theory, I will maintain my weight. And this is true. Like this isn't true for me because I do a little bit more activity than this. But notice, this is the main point. This will change depending on how much activity you do. Look by how much it changes. So this is based off of me doing 4 to 6 hours of exercise or sports per week, 4 to 6. If I bump this up to 7 to 9, this goes up by 400 calories, okay? So if we go back to this example, 2,000 calories as your maintenance, I would assume that you're either a very short woman or you are a normal height man, like average height man, but you just don't move a lot. Like you're sedentary during the day. So this is why every fitness coach on planet Earth tells you to move more, because it's just going to allow you to eat more food and not feel as hungry during a fat loss phase, okay? So let's say that you start moving more. Instead of doing 0 hours, let me just show you guys the difference of 0 hours. Let's say I'm doing none, little to no physical activity. This goes from 3,200 to little to no physical activity. That's 2,200 calories per day. That's not a ton of food for somebody like me at 6'1". That's not a ton of food. It's going to be miserable for the next 14 weeks. So you want to increase your physical activity. 7 to 9 hours for me is what I do. And that looks like training 4 days per week in the gym for about an hour to an hour and a half, and 3 days of running per week for about an hour. Now I know what, not everybody has that lifestyle. I'm a fitness coach. I do this for a living. I've optimized my life for this. Okay. So rest in knowing that there is some solace in the fact that if you don't move so much during the day, you also probably won't feel as hungry as me. Okay. So don't let me worry you about the amount of food that you can eat. If 2,000 calories is your maintenance and eating 1,200 calories per day is not that big of a deal for you and you only feel a little hungry but it's manageable, then great, okay? That's not a big deal. I'm not saying you need to increase your physical activity. I'm saying if that number feels low to you and you know you would feel hungry, then you're going to want to increase your physical activity. The main way to do that, in my recommendation, is to increase your step count per day. The reason why is, if you were to start doing a bunch of intense cardio has this issue where it has a disproportionate, I'll just make this simple. If you do a ton of hard cardio, you're gonna feel hungrier than the number of calories that you burned, okay? So I go and run 10,000 steps versus I walk 10,000 steps. By the end of it, I am going to feel hungrier after having ran 2,000 steps or 10,000 steps than if I had walked it, okay? Obviously, you will have burnt more calories by running, that's fair, than if you had walked, but the difference in hunger that you're gonna feel is disproportionate to the calories that you burned, okay? I'm not gonna get into the science of this. This is the point of like a quick training. Just steps, hit ideally 8 to 10,000 steps per day. The more, the better here, because you're not going to feel as hungry again if you walk more, okay? So ways to walk more. Walk after every meal. After every meal that you can, not every single one necessarily, the ones that you can, go outside for a quick walk. It's gonna help you digest more. It's gonna help you with your circadian rhythm, which is gonna help you sleep better. It's just gonna help everything. So walk after every meal. If you're somebody that works from home, get yourself a walking pad. Walking pads are incredible. You can burn so many calories just by walking and being on a Zoom call, okay? Easy ways to get steps. Also, go out for a walk on the weekend. Go for an urban hike in your city. Go on a regular hike. Like, there's so many ways to get steps. You don't even need to get creative. Just go outside, okay? It'll make you feel better. So, how do we not feel so hungry? Eating 1,250 calories per day? You don't, okay? You just increase this to, what did we say earlier? When I increased from 4 to 6 hours to 7 to 9 hours of physical activity, it increased 400 calories. Now, if I increase this by 400 calories, it's 1,650 calories per day. That's a lot more manageable. A lot more manageable. Here's another very important mindset. Guys, when you're losing over a pound of fat per week, you're gonna feel a little hungry. That's just a mindset that you need to accept. You're gonna feel a little hungry. There are strategies that I'm gonna teach you to make it so that you don't feel as hungry, but you're gonna feel a little hungry, okay? Especially at the beginning when you're not new, or when you're new to dieting properly. When you're new to dieting. When you diet properly, you don't feel as hungry. So I'm gonna teach you, how do you actually not feel so hungry on a diet? Because even at 1,650, you might feel hungry. Remember guys, 1,650 is based off of a 2,000 calorie maintenance. Everybody's maintenance who's watching here is gonna be different. You need to go to this calculator to figure out yours. Google Legion, TDEE calculator, tap on the first link, put in your information, be very conservative with the activity, and then this is your maintenance. So you're just gonna swap that maintenance number with this maintenance number that I have in the training, okay? So one, how do we not feel so hungry after 1,650 calories per day? Increase your step count, which is gonna increase that number to 1,650, your target calories to lose 1.5 pounds per week. Do that by hitting steps. Okay, how do we actually not feel so hungry? The key to this is high volume, low calorie foods, and also meal timing and macro, like strategic macro hoarding, we can call it, okay? So let's dive into all three of these. 1, 2, 3, high volume, low calorie foods. I want you to picture a watermelon, and then I want you to picture a watermelon. I want you to picture a watermelon. I want you to picture like a big, juicy ribeye steak. Or let's make this even easier. Like a gigantic bag of Doritos. All right? Watermelon. Imagine finishing an entire watermelon by yourself. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it in one sitting. It might take you a full day, 2 days to eat the whole watermelon. Because you're going to be so full because it's going to fill you up. It's going to fill your stomach up with what? Volume. Okay? Now, the opposite, bag of Doritos, not a ton of volume. You could probably think about it, like you could probably easily within a day slam a bag of Doritos. And the thing is that they will both have very similar calorie counts. The difference is you can slam a bag of Doritos in a day and it might take you 3 days to consume a watermelon. Do you see the difference? Same calories, but one keeps you fuller for longer. So this is the number one strategy that gets people lean. It's understanding this. It's understanding if I can keep the calories low and the food volume high, and the name of the game is eating healthy foods. It's like what you deem as healthy foods: vegetables, chicken, lean proteins like fish, like lean red meats like flank steak, very low fat ground beef, all of those things. That's going to be the food that you're looking for. Okay, fruits like watermelon, a lot of volume, a lot of water, a lot of fiber in them. It's going to keep you full for very long. Protein also is very hunger suppressing, because protein is very satiating. Satiating is like the term for not feeling hungry, okay? So I want you to imagine, just to make this land, I want you to imagine trying to break up a chicken breast in your hands. All right, now I want you to imagine trying to break up like mashed potatoes in your hands, or like a boiled potato in your hands. Which one's gonna be easier to break up? The mashed potatoes, obviously, okay? The protein is just as difficult for your stomach to break down. So it's gonna go through you slowly, versus something like a mashed potato, carbs, vegetables, stuff like that, it will go through you a bit faster, okay? Breads, things that you easily chew up, they're gonna go through you faster. So protein, because it's so challenging to break down, it actually has this interesting thing about it where it will burn itself off calorically. So let me teach you guys something here. This is really a powerful thing to know. Protein, there's what's called the thermic effect of food. All you need to know is like, this is the number of calories that eating the food will burn just by virtue of eating it. So protein's gonna burn about 20% of itself off through digestion. So that means that, let's say you eat 1,000 calories of protein, just by eating it, you're gonna burn 200 calories. Isn't that insane? Versus the thermic effect of fats and carbs is significantly lower. Fats is actually the lowest, carbs is second lowest, but they're both virtually the same. In your minds, you can just think of these as basically the same. So the point is, you have 1,000 calories of either fat or carbs, and you're gonna have eaten exactly 1,000 calories, pretty much, of both of those, okay? Whereas if you eat protein, it's like you get it kind of at a discount. Isn't that crazy? So this is another benefit to eating more protein while you're in a fat loss phase. Now, the biggest benefit of all, and this goes into question number 2, I promise we're gonna come back to how do we not feel so hungry. Question number 2 is, how do we just lose fat and not muscle? Well, you just lose fat and not muscle by eating enough protein. If you eat enough protein, how much? 0.8, and honestly, to be safe, I would recommend, but 0.8 is about the lower limit, okay? To be safe, on a fat loss phase, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Now, this is where people mess up. What is lean body mass? How do I know what my lean body mass is? It's a calculation. So let's not even worry about it. This is why I say 0.8 times your body weight in pounds, and that's the amount of protein that you should eat. So for me, I'm 200 pounds, 200 times 0.8 equals 160 grams. That should be about my minimum, 160 grams of protein per day. That's my minimum, okay? Awesome. If you eat that, you will exclusively lose fat, not muscle. Now there's an asterisk there, okay? If you're already very lean, if you're already pretty lean, like let's say you're preparing for a competition, like a bodybuilding competition, which I don't expect any of you to, but I just want to explain the nuance here. And you're only eating protein, but you're already very lean, it's not going to protect you from losing muscle tissue. You also need to train. And regardless of whether you're training for preparing for a bodybuilding competition, I would suggest that you train, because everybody's body is different. Your body isn't necessarily just going to go, oh, we're in a calorie deficit and we're losing about a pound of fat per week, or a pound and a half of fat per week. Let's just lose fat. It's not necessarily going to say that. It's going to go, let's just lose weight. Okay? Now, you're going to prevent that if you eat enough protein, but you're going to prevent it even more if you also train. Because what training does, what resistance training does, is it basically rings this giant bell in your body that goes, grow protein here, motherfucker, okay? Grow it. And if you don't ring that bell, sometimes your body's gonna deprioritize muscle. It's gonna go, all right, we're not using this muscle, so might as well lose it. All right, and that is a law just in life. If you don't use it, you will lose it. So if you want to especially prevent losing muscle and you want to just lose fat, then you do need to be training and you do need to be eating enough protein. But worst case, let's say you really don't want to train, you suck at training, the next best thing is just make sure you're eating protein. And if you're especially not going to train, I would actually bump this up to about 1 gram. So this would be, instead of 160, this would be 200 grams of protein per day. The goal is to never lose muscle because it's so hard to build as it is. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap. How do we not feel so hungry eating 1650 calories per day? Or how do we not feel so hungry eating our target calories for 1.5 pounds of fat loss per week? High volume foods, eat enough protein. How do we just lose fat and not muscle? Eat your protein and train, okay? We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, there's 2 more steps here to how do we not feel so hungry eating the number of calories per day. Meal timing and strategic macro hoarding. I know I spelled hoarding wrong. I think I did. Whatever. Maybe not. Meal timing. So, big mistake I used to make is at the beginning of the day, I would eat all of my calories. So this would be my whole day, and I would say have 2,200 calories to eat, and I would eat breakfast, and this breakfast meal would be like 1,000 calories. So that means that instead of 2,200 calories, I only have 1,200 calories left to eat the rest of the day. And I would eat this at like 8 a.m. So the issue with that is now I have 1,200 calories for lunch, dinner, and I would often feel hungry right before bed. So like my next 3 meals, I would have very little. Versus, this is what oh my God, what is it called? I've lost the term so much. Intermittent fasting, Jesus. I'm not going to sound like a fitness coach. Intermittent fasting is essentially this. It's pushing back these calories to the time where you actually feel hungry, which for me and for you guys might be like 1 p.m. Okay? Also, we'll get into the macro hoarding, not making this such a massive meal. Okay? Because you want to ask yourself, when do I feel the most hungry? And it probably isn't breakfast. I mean, sometimes it is if you've been used to that for a long time. For me, when I feel the hungriest or when I really want to have the most calories, it's around this time. It's around 6 p.m. So if I get my food in, my extra calories in at 6 p.m., then that means that I won't go to bed hungry. And so I will experience fewer hunger pangs. I won't associate the fat loss phase with as much hunger. Okay? So this is why it's so key to time your meals properly. Long story short, pick the time of day that you tend to be the hungriest, save your calories for that time. Now, this changes on the weekends, because on the weekend, what do we like to do on the weekends? We like to go out to dinners, we like to party. So you want to save your calories even if you're not hungry. You want to save your calories for those dinners or those parties. So here's how I used to go about this in college, okay? And even post-college. You are essentially going to, at the beginning of the day, when your first meal is going to be high protein, you want to hit at least half of your protein target, because you know that if you're going to drink later on in the day, that at that time you're not going to be having much protein. So you don't want to have to eat 200 grams of protein at the end of the day. That's going to suck. You won't do it, and therefore you're going to lose muscle on this fat loss phase. So you got to be strategic. You have half of your protein goal at the beginning of the day. And then you have maybe like another 30% right around dinner, right before your party. And then what happens with most people is they'll go out to their party or their dinner. Usually the dinner, if you're going to a restaurant, make sure you have a protein-filled meal. That will get you to the rest of your protein goal. Or if you're going to a party and it's mainly drinking, then great. You've got some calories that you've budgeted for that party, the majority of your calories that you've budgeted for that. And what usually happens after a party? We want to eat after the party. So after the party, you'll have the last bit of your protein, but at least it won't be 200 grams of protein that you have to eat. That is how you do that. Okay, so that is strategic. That is strategic meal timing. Now, strategic macro hoarding is about the same. It's pretty much, it's something to understand here, guys, is macros are calories. Okay, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories, and 1 gram of carbs equals 4 calories. And 1 gram of alcohol, which is a macronutrient, I wouldn't call it a nutrient, but I don't know if they've changed the definition of that, is 7 calories, okay? So these macros associate 2 calories, all right? So what I was talking about here, about saving your calories for another day, for another time in the day, I'm also referring to the number of calories that you're eating, okay? So what we wanna do here is save the macros for another time. If you are somebody that likes to have, let's say, desserts at the end of the day, and it makes you happy to go to bed with dessert, then you are going to make sure, same thing as here, the drinking example, that you have your protein at the beginning of the day and you save your carbs for the end of the day when you need them and want them most. You can stave off a lot of hunger, a lot of like feeling that a diet isn't flexible by being strategic like this. And this is the name of the game. Okay? So, if there are questions, you guys can always feel free to DM me or leave a comment down below, and I will get to those answers, get to those questions, and I will also make more videos. Like, I love doing trainings like these. So, this is where we're at right now. How do we not feel so hungry? I think we've answered that question. How do we just lose fat and not muscle? We've answered part 1 of that question, which is eating enough protein. And then there's the training side of things. So you need to be training minimum 1 day per week you need to be training your muscle groups, all of them, minimum 1 time per week for your body to go, all right, let's not lose some of this muscle. Especially as you get leaner, because there's this thing about your body. If you've got fat on you, your body's going to prioritize the fat more often than not. Okay? But if you don't have a ton of fat on you, your body may prioritize the muscle. And so because we don't know, and because we are so inconsistent as human beings, it's better to just say, let me train so that I reduce the risk of me losing the muscle. Let me also eat more protein than I maybe should or need to so that I reduce the risk of losing muscle, because you want to keep as much muscle as you possibly can. Muscle, if you build, quick little side note here, I like to talk about this in every one of my videos. Men can build 40 to 50 pounds of muscle over the course of their lifetime, naturally. This is without magic vitamins. Women can build about half that, so 20 to 25 over the course of your lifetime, all right? If you've never lifted a weight before, let's just assume that you're at 0. Now, it's gonna take you years, decades to get to this point, to that 50. Okay, it's taken me 15 years to get to about 40. You can do this in a shorter amount of time. How short? 4 to 5 years if everything's perfect. Genetics are perfect, your nutrition's perfect and consistent, your training is perfect and consistent. You could do it in 4 to 5 years. But that's not reality for most people. Most people are not perfect, they're not robots, and they never will be. And so we need to be realistic. For me, assuming reality, me never being coached or working with anybody, 15 years. And I did eventually start working with a coach, and that sped up the process for me. So why do I mention this? Muscle for a lot of people is just like an aesthetic thing. Oh, I'll just look better if I have more muscle. No. You're thinking about this all wrong. Muscle is the key to freedom for you. Muscle is the key to food freedom. Why? Because remember earlier when I talked to you guys about your maintenance calories? This 2,000 calorie maintenance, if you are at 0 pounds of muscle that you've built, let's say that that's 2,000 calories for you. If you're at 40, this may go up to like 3,000 calorie maintenance. Let's just do a quick example. I've never actually done this. Okay? So I've built about 40 pounds of muscle. Let's say I stripped all of that off. That's a pretty solid difference. So I strip 40 of those pounds off of me. I go from 200, that's 3,271 calories down here, down to 160. That's 240 calories. What was that number? Let me do that again. 200, so 3,271 to 160. It's about 300 calorie difference, okay? That's a 300 calorie difference on top of your maintenance calories that now you can eat. That's an extra mini meal every single day for the rest of your life that you can eat by just having more muscle. But I know that number seems small, so let me explain something to you guys. Here's the other thing about that. What do you think happens to the number of calories that you burn per step when you carry a 40-pound weight vest on you? Now every step you take weighs 40 pounds more. How many more calories do you think you burn per step? And what do you think that does to your maintenance calories? I can't quantify this right now. What I can tell you is that I can lose 2 pounds per week, probably even more, 2 to 2.5 pounds per week by eating 2,500 to 2,700 calories per day. Because right now, I maintain my weight between 3,500 and 3,700 calories per day. So 2 pounds of fat loss per week would be 1,000 calorie deficit. Remember, 500 calorie deficit is a pound. So 500, double that, it's 2 pounds per week. Okay? And that's because I've built all of this muscle. That means that you get so much freedom down the line. An extra 300 calories per day of freedom, plus the delta, the difference in how many calories you burn per every step that you take. Also, this is the third part. Think about the time that it took you to build that muscle, right? I mentioned decades. Think about the habits that you've developed. Think about the person that you've become by the end of that. The person that you've become by the end of that is probably somebody like me that now I like to run. I run 3 days a week. I train 4 days a week because I love it. I love it. It's the best start to the day. It's like a drug. And so now, this is the biggest influencer. Now your physical activity naturally just starts to go up. So when I was first starting to work out, maybe I worked out 2-3 days a week. That's 2265 maintenance calories. Over the last 15 years of developing these habits, I've gotten to a place where I can easily sustain 7 to 9 hours of exercise. I don't even think about it. I like it. I'm about to go for a 7-mile run right now after this. Look at the difference. It's an extra 700 calories per day. So this is why I don't even talk about aesthetics a lot of the time. I know my company is called Bacano Aesthetics, but that's because for most people, when they first join the program, they want the aesthetics. They want to look better. But what they stay for is, what you really want is the freedom. You don't want to look good at the expense of like having a boring life and not being able to go and have a beer and go and travel and have the foods that you want. That's what this program is all about. I'm kind of like soft plugging our program. It's not, we don't work with bodybuilders. We work with people that want to look fucking amazing. They know that they know that they were meant for more, but they just don't look it. And they've struggled for years with getting to a place where they look and feel really good. But they also want to enjoy the hell out of their lives. And this is the way. Okay? So, back to losing 21 pounds over the next 14 weeks and just losing fat out of those 21 pounds. Okay? We all understand muscle is key, muscle is freedom. This is how you should be, this should be your North Star. And I say this because I want you guys to train. I don't want you to just lose 21 pounds. I want you to lose 21 pounds of fat. And I also want you to look really good by the end of this. And you're going to look better by the end of this if you have just lost fat, but if you've also built muscle. So really, really simple here. I'm not going to go too deep on this, but if you guys go to my website, which is Julio Santos-De, and you tap on free training program, yes, you're going to have to send me your email and I'll send it to you. And it's going to give you a 3, 4, or 5 day training program for men and women. And it will just handle it for you. You just follow that training program. And my recommendation is that you put this into an app called Heavy. This app is phenomenal. It's a workout tracker. So you basically take our program, which will pop up in an Excel sheet, and you just take all the exercises and put it into this app. And it's going to look like this, where it tells you the exercise you're doing because you've built a template. It gives you a spot to put the weight that you did, the reps that you did, and the goal is every single time you open the app and start a workout, you want to do better than you did last time, okay? And you will, at the very least, build muscle. Or at the very least, you will make sure that you maintain the muscle, okay? I have so many videos on this on my Instagram. I have other videos on my YouTube talking about muscle growth. This video is just about losing 21 pounds of fat over the next 21 weeks. So let's just get back to that, and let me make sure that I haven't missed any of my bases. Let's actually talk about the timeline here really quick and like some common mistakes. This is probably the most important part of the video because fitness and fat loss is very easy in theory, but in practice, something's gonna go wrong. I mean, half the reason you guys haven't lost weight and haven't kept it off is because life gets messy. So we've got 14 weeks. I think we're clear on the timeline. Today is September 26th, January 1st. What's gonna happen in between this time and that time? We've got Thanksgiving, Black Friday, we've got the holidays, we've got Christmas. I'm Roman Catholic, so I'm just talking Christmas here. But we have a bunch of holidays. Now we've got family plans and stuff. So what do we do with that? Okay, let's bring this back to this. What I was talking about earlier. High volume, low calorie foods, meal timing, strategic macro hoarding. So when you get to a holiday party and you know you've got a big dinner with the family, save your calories, save your macros for then. Make sure that you hit a decent amount of your protein earlier on in the day when you are hungry for your first meal, so that when you do get to the party and it's a lot of drinking, ideally either don't drink, which I've chosen not to drink in my life, or drink, but don't make it so that you have 200 grams of protein to hit at that dinner party, okay? Be strategic with this. Also, when you're at a dinner party, we want to stay away from the foods that are very calorically dense. The foods that are going to be calorically dense are the foods that are high in fat, and also alcohol, as we've talked about, is a macronutrient as well. Macronutrients are going to be the protein, fat, carbs, alcohol. The most dense ones here are fat and alcohol. So we want to be eating protein and we want to be eating carbs, vegetables, fruits, lean proteins like chicken, fish. If you see that at the dinner party, great. Worst case scenario, grab the red meat if that's all that's available because it's high in protein. It's also going to be high in fat, so it's a double-edged sword. But remember that protein is going to burn 20% of itself off. Okay, so if you have the red meat, you can almost do like, all right, well, yeah, by eating this protein, I'm gonna burn like 200 calories or 20% of it, and that will make up for some of the fat that's in the protein that I'm eating. Okay, so protein's always going to be the best option, regardless, because it's going to keep you fuller, and if you're fuller, that means you're probably going to eat less of the stuff that's really going to screw you over, which is the desserts, the alcohol, that stuff. So get yourself full at a dinner party and then sip on water. Okay, LaCroix, sparkling water, those are my favorite things. Because this is the reality. It's going to be challenging to do this during the holidays. Now, how are you going to, as we start to wrap up here, how are you going to keep track of all this stuff? You need a food diary. Track your calories with MyFitnessPal. If you want a free calorie tracking Bible that will tell you the common mistakes, this is probably the most important thing. You want to make sure that you're tracking your calories accurately. We have this calorie tracking Bible that gives you the best practices for tracking to make sure that you're not inaccurately tracking. The reason this is so important, and this is why so many people say calorie tracking just doesn't work for me. The reason why is most people, even though they understand the concept of tracking their calories, they don't realize how accurate they need to do it. And so most people will underreport the number of calories that they've eaten by 1,000 on average. So let's say you lose weight at 2,000 calories, but you're underreporting the amount you're eating by 1,000 calories. So you think, let's say you tracked 2,000, you're like, great, I should lose weight because I'm eating 2,000. You tracked 2,000. It doesn't mean you ate 2,000. In reality, you ate 3,000 calories. Because what did you miss? You didn't track with your food scale, so you were kind of eyeballing it, and your eyeballs are going to lie to you. You didn't track the snacks that you had because you were trying to go based off of memory, and you're like, oh, these little snacks won't really count. You didn't track your condiments, ketchup, oils on the pan. You didn't track sugar that you put in your coffee, milk that you put in your coffee, creamer that you put in your coffee. You weren't clear. You didn't make you weren't specific about whether or not the food that you ate was raw or cooked, which is really important for MyFitnessPal to know because there is a difference. The food will always be the same number of calories, whether it's raw or cooked. However, the amount that it will weigh will change after it is cooked. Rice, for example, after it is cooked, is going to gain weight because it absorbs water. Okay, so the calories stay the same, but if you tell MyFitnessPal, hey, I'm eating, after it's cooked, I'm eating 2 cups of dry rice, you're going to double the calories. You only put in 1 cup of dry rice. It's 2 cups of cooked rice. So then if you tell MyFitnessPal it's 2 cups of cooked rice, it will go, oh, okay, that's 1 cup of dry rice. That's what I should be referring to. Otherwise, you're going to double the calories that you think you ate. Okay. Same thing goes in the reverse when you with meats. If you cook meat, it's going to lose weight. Calories are going to stay the same pre and post cooking, but after you cook the food, it's going to lose weight. So if you tell MyFitnessPal, hey, I put this ribeye on the grill and it weighed 500 grams. After I cooked it, it weighs 300 grams. And you say I ate 300 grams of raw ribeye, that's not correct. You had 500 grams of raw ribeye, 300 grams of cooked ribeye. So it's going to mess up your calorie intakes, okay? I've already basically touched on the main ones, so if you just apply those, you'll be set. But if you need a reminder of that, you can just DM me on Instagram, Calorie Tracking Bible, and I will send you our whole PDF that just has all this handy for you guys to know. So you're going to track your food on MyFitnessPal. You're going to use a food scale. You are going to track everything that you possibly can. When you go to a restaurant, you are going to find the closest thing that you can to the food that you're eating at that restaurant. So if you ordered a ahi tuna, blah, blah, blah. Great thing to order, by the way. Very lean protein, high in protein, and low in fat. You're going to look up, okay, I can't find the ahi tuna at Yard House, so I'm just going to find an ahi tuna from some other restaurant that makes sense. When you're at a restaurant, the simplest tool I can give you is overestimate the amount of calories that you think you're eating by about 20 to 25%. If you think something is 1,000 calories, add another 250 to it across the board. That's going to make sure that you still lose weight. Because if you're too liberal about it, you're going to get to the end of the week and you're going to be like, I haven't lost a single pound. Because you're making up for all of the calories on the weekends from tracking inaccuracies. Okay, these are the most common pitfalls. It's the weekends that you got to be aware of. During the week, it's really easy for people to track their food at home. Super easy. It's on the weekend that it screws you over. Okay, so 1.5 pounds. This is how you lose it. This is how you this is how you do it without feeling as hungry. This is how you just lose fat and not muscle. And this is tactically what you are going to do. MyFitnessPal, food scale, weigh yourself. I would say weigh yourself, of course, is critical. This is the only way that you're really going to know whether or not you're losing weight. Weigh yourself every morning under the same conditions. So that means if you are going to take a piss every single morning, then make sure you take a piss every single morning before you weigh yourself. If you're going to go number 1 and number 2, then make sure it's number 1 and number 2 every single morning before you do it. My recommendation, because number 2 is irregular, number 1, no clothes or just underwear, step on the scale, put it in a note. Really important. I'm going to show you guys an example here. This is my check-in sheet. This is how I track my weights. This is how I know whether or not I'm losing weight. So I track my weight every morning. I put it in an Excel sheet. At the end of the week, it takes the average. So this is 200 pounds. This is what you should be using. You should be going by weekly averages, not daily fluctuations. It's going to save you a lot of headache so that you're not worrying about the fluctuations. Check out like my fluctuations. It goes 203 to 201.8 to 201.2 to 199.8 to back up to 200 to 198.4 to back up to 200. You might think you're not losing weight. Look at the weekly average, okay? But you need 2 weeks of data to know whether or not you are losing the amount that you think you are. So then you go in the second week, same exact thing, you weigh yourself and you subtract the first week's average from the second week's, or the second week's average from the first week's average. And this was a net loss of 3 pounds. Great, I lost 3 pounds of weekly average weight in that first week. This is how you're gonna track it to make sure that you lose 1.5 pounds per week. If you're low, if you're not losing 1.5 pounds per week, then you need to lower your calories or increase your physical activity. Literally that simple. Lower your calories slightly. By how much? 100 calories. Okay? Increase your physical activity. By how much? As much as you sustainably can. If you've been walking 6,000 steps per day, get up to 8,000. You can do it. If you're at 8,000, you're not losing weight, get up to 10,000. You could do it. Okay? I never said this was going to be necessarily easy in a cakewalk. This is going to be way easier with the strategies that I've told you in this training, but this is going to be challenging to some degree. 1.5 pounds per week is a lot of weight. I'd say a more sustainable number is about 0.5 pound to 1 pound per week. All right. That's it. I mean, there's so much more, but this is already a 45-minute long training. I hope you guys got a ton of value from this. I hope this was helpful. And we'll leave it there. Follow and subscribe for more, y'all. Peace.